Hi guys, my name is Franco Tenelli and this is another video about Appoggio. So many questions about Appoggio I receive from your comments and your private letters, so I decided to make another video, maybe more helpful for you not to understand Appoggio mentally, but also how to experience Appoggio, because experience in our field is understanding. Just theoretical understanding, as I mentioned before in my programs, is not enough to get the correct way of doing it. I also wanted to specify that sometimes singers and people who studied voice, they mixed up the term Appoggio with just support. What I teach is Appoggio technique, or I can tell you it's the balanced support technique. You can call it any name you like. The essence of this technique is that the diaphragm plays a very active role in balancing the compression of air, which is very necessary for us to get free and resonant sound. So the Appoggio is not just a support, or it's not just a support with the diaphragm. I mean, most of the teachers, and that's not a bad school at all, teach generally a combination of support and placement, or rather, I would say rather placements. We need to really make distinction on that in Appoggio type of breathing or balanced diaphragmical breathing, because that is very important to understand. Appoggio singer uses only one placement, natural placement, and those who teach so-called placement, really, they teach placements, plural. That means the dissection of the voice in 2, 3, or even more, ridiculously more registers, and accordingly they sing with that type of division. So that does not bring your voice into the ultimate beauty. The ultimate beauty can be brought only with the support that is called Appoggio or balanced Appoggio, because it doesn't mess around with the placement. The voice turns into one and only one register, and this is nothing new and controversial, if you like, about it. Because if you, again, if you look at the Caruso statements and Lily Lemon statements, especially Lily Lemon, who actually started displacement schools, in fact, she supported only one register. Those followers of Lily Lemon who distorted her ideas, they turned personal sensations into the method, which she also has to be blamed in a certain way. But in essence, she did not support dissection of the registers. So she supported, like all great singers, Appoggio way of breathing, or Appoggio way of supporting your voice. So that, in this lesson, I'm going not just to talk about the Appoggio, not just to show you some diagrams, schemes, but actually give you some exercises pointing out what and how you may feel when you use so-called dynamic diaphragmical way of support, or Appoggio. So-called school of support that mainly used by high soprano voices, but not only by them. Some tenors use that, unfortunately, and some mezzo-sopranos also. The ones that usually teach support, the support is mainly taught in today's school, so-called of abdominal muscle support. Very passive diaphragmical opposition. That's what they call support, and that's some even teachers, they call it the Appoggio, or they call it diaphragmical support. You can call anything you want. The voice terminology is so vague and so controversial, then it really doesn't matter what you call it. But what is important is how you do it. And when we talk about the so-called majorly taught support is support that is using so-called breathe-in technique. Why it is not the ultimate support, so-called breathe-in technique? Because I already explained to you in other lessons that this is unidirectional way, and the diaphragm, though it has to oppose a little bit, but it doesn't play a significant role in controlling all the pressures inside your lungs. So you can get away with certain things. You can get away with singing a particular notes in a particular range quite beautifully using this one, but you cannot really balance all of your voice and balance it to the point that you don't compromise your placement. This is the main role of Appoggio. Appoggio is used, and Appoggio's manipulations and pressures are used not to compromise the natural placement. And I'm going to demonstrate you in exercises and in voice you can hear when you should use so-called active dynamic opposition of the diaphragm. That is important to understand. Dynamic opposition of the diaphragm. I repeat, dynamic opposition of the diaphragm. What is dynamic opposition of the diaphragm? Dynamic opposition of the diaphragm is, upon necessity, you use diaphragm and you push down, upon necessity, to balance the pressure on the vocal cords. Why? Because that particular pressure may cause the strain or forcing in your voice or the change of the placement. So all it's used to balance all this pressure, because with only so-called low abdominal muscles and breathe-in support, you cannot successfully fulfill those tasks. You can balance maybe something, you will compromise your integrity in the voice. This is the law of nature. This is not me just saying it is supposed to be the way. It's the law of nature, the law of acoustics. That's why we need to learn Appoggio, a real Appoggio, not the ones that people say I teach Appoggio, or the combination of Appoggio and placements. That's not real Appoggio. Real Appoggio is purely based on support, on diaphragm technique that allows you to sing beautifully within the same natural placement. And that's what placement is all about in Appoggio. When we talk placement, we don't talk placements. Okay? And the placements is the method that divides your registers into many registers. I'm not saying that the placement singer is totally awful, terrible, and has no place in the world of opera. What I'm saying is that the instrument that placements singers use is dissected in different registers. And of course, this is not a perfect instrument. The singer, though, who sings with this or that technique, we still might like him and love him regardless to his integrity of his voice or not, because of the enormous love he puts into his singing and charisma and musicality and all other stuff. But we are talking about the instrument. We are talking about whether you want to have a great Steinway piano at your home, or you want to have a Baldwin, you want to have a Stradivari or a Mati violin, or you just want to buy $50 violin at your store. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about expression. And just to make sure that you understand, the instruments are not always. There was an interesting, I think, the experiment that David Oistrakh was invited to an old Soviet factory where they were producing very cheap violins that. And some of the guys complained. They said, listen, how can you play on this? This is like, $15 violin made up of just furniture, wood. And David also took this violin, $15 violin, very cheap one, and he played something. And It was amazing. So of course, we're not talking about this. We're talking about the pure instrument. Of course, it would be much more beautiful if David Oistrakh took his own violin, or Stradivari, or any other great violin, definitely. So we're talking about the instrument right now. We're not talking about charisma and beautiful singing and how to build a beautiful, uncompromising, consistent and enforced instrument. And that's only possible with Appoggio. So we're going to examine in this video, I'm going to show you certain exercises how to feel Appoggio. Because I talked about Appoggio and advise you to look at some other videos. Video is very difficult to give you a real experience. And real experience is real knowledge. You can know a great deal of things on singing, correct and incorrect, but it doesn't make you the guy who really experienced that and really understands it, you know? So the talk is one thing and walking the walk is the other thing. I've tried to get you a walking the walk type of experience today, but again, it's your experience. You have to try it. During this little exercises, I will guide you through this. It will be easier for you to get what usually Appoggio singers feels or senses when he uses his Appoggio technique. Right here in this lesson, start of the exercise, basically open your senses more. Your mind is already open, but open your senses towards what I call Appoggio technique, or diaphragmical balanced support. So if I give you just ordinary exercises and tell you now you feel Appoggio, try to feel Appoggio, try to do it in Appoggio way, it will be probably very difficult for you to distinguish between those subtle changes in the voice. To understand Appoggio, to sense it, I'm going to give you particular exercises that are going to challenge you, challenge your voice, challenge integrity of your voice. And then I'm going to give you the solution how to fix that challenge. And then you will hopefully start not just to understand it in your mind, but start really to understand it, how to feel and how to sense Appoggio. You've heard from some prominent singers and teachers that in order to master your high notes, one should think lower or should breathe lower. What does it mean? It basically means that your diaphragm is trying to oppose the abdominal muscle movement that compresses your lungs to create the sound, and this diaphragmical movement is opposing this movement. It makes sure that your lungs are not over compressed, are not over pushed, so it creates the balance. So that's why it's a weird sensation of singing the higher note, you feel it lower because you actually push it a little bit lower on the higher note. It doesn't mean that your diaphragm really descends, because it's impossible for diaphragm to descend while singing. You will start to inhale if it really happens. But the sensation is full of pressing down, and therefore maybe even going down with the diaphragm. You see, the sensations are illusions, but they're important for us. Anyways, so when you sing the high note, you see that. But it's not only the high note we're talking about. We're talking about the whole integrity of the voice. So sometimes in Appoggio, diaphragm is a very passive. It's opposing the movements of the low abdominals, but it's more passive way. And it's depending on what you're singing, on how contrastly you're singing, what kind of notes you're trying to connect. That is the challenge for Appoggio and for integrity of the voice. So let me give you some challenging exercises here, and let me show you what you're going to do when you using those connections between two notes or two vowels. Let's start right now. I want you to experiment a little bit with these sensations. And I want you to experiment not only trying to get the right sensations and the right movement, but I want you also to realize what you're doing wrong. And so therefore, I want you to experiment with the wrong things and eventually the right things. And then you will clearly see the difference between them. So let's start with this exercise. It's just an octave, and it goes from E to R. And you see, the E and R, they're vowels that by themselves, they create different pressures. Even if you sing the same note on the same pitch, if you sing it R, E or E, R, you will experience different pressures. And in order to cope with these pressures, you need to use more or less the opposition of the diaphragm in order to balance this disbalanced pressure, because that's what happens. Pressure gets disbalanced when you're doing those jumps. And let's say the first exercise is going to be from B flat to B flat. So let's say baritone can easily exercise this, and it will be E, R rather. It's E, R is more challenging. Let's say it's a B flat. E, R, E, R. I'm trying to not to change the color of my voice and not to force it at the same time. So in order not to change the color of my voice, I have to keep the larynx in the same position. But if I just try to keep it in the same position without adjusting support, I may get into forcing. So what I'm using here, this connection. Okay, when I use E, my diaphragm is stable. It opposes this sound passively. But what happens if I use the same passive opposition and do nothing? You see, the diaphragm collapses and my voice support collapses. I don't know if you can do it because you're conditioned not to do it, but if you experiment a little bit with that, you realize if you do nothing, you will end up with the same result. Though, again, I repeat, not everybody is able to do what I am doing right now, because you may be so conditioned that you cannot produce so-called breathy sound, and you can end up doing this, which is glottal support. You see, I supported my voice, I fulfilled my conditions, I was conditioned to produce a supported voice. So in these cases, I did produce a supported voice. I did even keep my larynx in the same position, but I ended up singing glottally. That means that it is not appoggio. So this is glottal sound, okay? Let's us take a different approach here. Look at my hands, they are on the level of the diaphragm. Put them at the same level as I do and try visualize it. After you're singing E and you're coming to E, R on the low B flat, try to push down slowly but surely, like this. You will notice that your stomach will not collapse, it will not go in, but it rather gets expanded. It's like sandwich. You know, if you put, it's like, because this is a sandwich effect. Low abdominals pushing upwards, so they are the main force for support. The diaphragm opposes this movement, not to stop it, but to control it. Because it's supposed to stop it, then we stop singing. So, and therefore, all the things on our intestines and all the things in between, they get like a sandwich type of thing. That's why you have the expansion. It's almost unbelievable. But it is, there's no mystery or, you know, any secret about this. So let's do it one more time. Now, when I show you this, I show you the sensations rather than real movement of the diaphragm, because the diaphragm cannot move down in singing. It can move down only when it inhales, when it produces the inhaling action. So this is for diaphragm. The sensation of pushing it down is obvious. Let's move up to the C and let's do it again without changing anything in support. So we find out the good resonance, good passive opposition of the diaphragm, low abdominals working. You see what happens again? I repeat, you might not be able to do it because you're so conditioned not to sing with unsupported voice that you will do again the second action. And you end up with the stable larynx position, nevertheless forcing it through glottal sounds that are not very pleasant for the voice. So again, you see, this is not an easy movement, but you have to learn how to push down. Now this pushing down can really tie you up. If you start doing it, if you've never done it before, you will feel, oh my gosh, this is so physical. It is physical, of course, but with time it gets more normal because your muscles get stronger. So you will not feel this enormous physicality about this movement. You will get used to it. It's a good thing about this that you will not feel a stress in your throat. All the stresses, all the manipulations of the throat are gone into the support. And I'm going to tell you, there are people who don't even believe in that. They say, well, it's kind of, yeah, support, but 100% support? It's impossible. You know, I will not even argue with these people because the real understanding is experience. If you never experience that yourself, of course, you will be doubtful. You will say, ooh, you know, but there's one good point to prove it. There were singers who used Appoggio, 100% or 99% if you like. And there were Enrico Caruso and Beniamino Gigli and Giussi Berling and Luciano Pavarotti and all the great singers with great consistency and beauty in their voice. They use Appoggio technique, whether they realized it or not. And so that's the proof of the Appoggio technique. But the unbelievers who believe that it is impossible to do it all by the support, and I want you just to be like really 100% honest with you, this is natural placement is necessary first to find out. Natural placement and not placements. Again, I repeat that. Natural placement, which is a natural resonance, and then I have to make a note also. When we talk about natural placement, we also talk about what type of natural placement. If you're looking for jazzy voice, it's almost, you don't have to find it, it's there, it's very natural. When you're looking about the operatic or classical voice natural placement, that sounds kind of controversial. It cannot be really natural, right? You know, this huge big voice cannot be natural. We are not talking about 2-octave huge resonance, which is of course not natural. Otherwise people will be born with operatic voices and will have just a little training to fulfill. This type of natural placement is when you looking for a particular sound, and if this is an operatic sound, a powerful sound, you find it, and I had these exercises before, you find it in your throat and you develop it. This is what natural placement is in Appoggio. You find it, let's say, as I showed you that before, you're just not singing any exercises, just making loud but resonant noises, not damaging your voice. If you do something like this, that's damaging for your voice and it's not resonant at all. But if you do something like ha, here, ha, or some, this is on support and this is powerful, but it's not damaging to your voice. Kia sound. Kia sound balances support and also balances the mind because it's a diaphragmical breathing. So in a way, martial arts using elements of yoga here and intimidation through the sound, through the powerful sound. But it's the same principle of using the diaphragm as a cushion, if you like, or as a brake to balance your voice. So one of those exercises that I already said, I want you to practice. Now let's move into the higher notes. Let's say do it in E flat. Now I'm doing the scoop and portamento here because it's easier for you to get gradually into this opposition of the diaphragm than right away. But as soon as you get this slowly, you should move into this. Or, as graphically I showed you, your stomach kind of expands like a sandwich, you know, squeezed between opposition of the diaphragm and low abdominal muscles. So that is a very important exercise, and you actually can sing this over and over again to get this sensation of appoggio. Okay, let's do a little bit higher. It's F. You see, the same movement. The same movement. Now, let's do the opposite. Let's do from C. You see, with A, my diaphragm was more relaxed, you know, but it went to support E. And that's the tension of the diaphragm right away. And this sandwich effect that you start to pose the abdominal muscles, and so your stomach gets bigger. So let's do. Remember, when you return to the previous low note, the first position is not possible anymore, because you get into the diaphragmical opposition already, so you have to keep it more tight in this area. So that's very important too. And this is for tenors. Okay, I'm not even properly warmed up, but I'm trying to sing the last phrase of Salut de mer chaste pure. I put my balance. How did I do it? I just pushed down the diaphragm to coordinate the enormous pressure that was coming into my throat. Okay, so by that I eliminated unnecessary pressure. Okay, and let us do it one more time, and I'll show you how we do it. But you have to be warmed up. Okay, I'm not warmed up. That's fine, but you have to be warmed up to do it. So don't just try to do it right away, because it's a high C, and if you don't know how to do it, you may damage your voice. So please don't do it unless you're warmed up. So it's the matter of confidence and balance. Confidence is, on the other hand, is very important for tenors, sopranos, all high voices, because it's more important than any other instrument. And I'm not discriminating instrument. All instruments and all great players need confidence to go on stage and play. I'm a guitar player myself. I play piano. I play other instruments, and I know that confidence is all absolutely necessary element in performance. But why I emphasize that singers need that confidence more than anybody else? Because this singing high notes, for example, or anything, especially high notes, requires a total balance, an absolutely measured balance of an open throat and coordination between the diaphragm and low abdominal muscles. So the breathing system is totally calm. Now, if you don't have confidence in you and you're freaking out just approaching the high notes because you cracked before so many times, so you don't have confidence, you will not be able to do it actually, because you need to calm down and to put yourself in a meditation mood, or the observation mood, if you like, and then try to get this, and like observe, no judgment, nothing, and then you will see that all your physical possibilities are coming out 100% out.